All his life, Cal Ripken Jr. has wanted to play baseball since 1982. He has done just that in the major leagues for over 2,350 games consecutively. His career as a Baltimore Oriole has been marked with a string of awards: American League Rookie of the Year, two-time American League MVP, and 2 Golden Gloves awards. He will also be forever known for breaking Lou Gehrig's record for most consecutive games played. The streak, as it is known, and how he has gotten that far is chronicled in his new book, The Only Way I Know, and I am pleased to have Cal Ripken Jr. on this broadcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
I'm
very
especially pleased to have you here as you come to New York in 1997 for this series. The Orioles couldn't be doing better.
The season's gone very well for us so far. It seems like like the game yesterday. We came back after being down 6-2, and we were able to fight back and put together a big inning
Against the Yankees' best pitcher.
And yeah, it's true. And last year it seemed like it was exactly the opposite. The Yankees would do that to us. If we happened to get a lead late in the game, all of a sudden they seemed to come back and beat us whenever they wanted, it seemed
It's almost like this year is a mirror image of last year with the Orioles on top and the Yankees scrambling.
Well, the Yankees was their year last year, no doubt about it, and they deserved it, they earned it. But when you start to play well and you start to win games, you start to develop a certain confidence. And maybe last year we struggled in the early part. The Yankees jumped out fast and we had to play a little catch-up. This year we jumped out fast. We're confident, we're playing well, we're pitching well, and it just seems like it's a different attitude. So sometimes when you get to the end, you know, you have the confidence to win the game sometimes, whereas maybe last year we might have lacked that.
Confidence is crucial in baseball, as you have said, and other people, in terms of hitting, in terms of how you play the game, something you learned. How important is confidence to a team this early in the season, before the All-Star break, by a wide margin, when you're playing a team you haven't met before in the season?
Well, there's a danger of being too overconfident, because the season, I guess we just passed the quarter point. And so if you really think about it, we have 3/4 of the season left, and so anything can happen in those 40 games, like it happened at the start of the game. But it's always good to have a lead. It's always good to be on top and have someone else chasing you. But if you play a big series, sometimes the media gets a little bit carried away. Every one of the games are important. 162 games are important, and there are going to be series along the way that are going to define your team. And when you come into New York, you'd like to play well against New York because they're a very good team. But you don't want to make too much of that series. If you lose both games or whatever else, the season's not over. If you win both games, it doesn't guarantee you're going to win either.
But there's something of a stretching a muscle by the Orioles here this weekend, because you haven't met before and because you're on top. There's an element of that.
Well, yes. I mean, there's no denying that. You want to play well against them, especially last year we lost against them in the playoffs. And there's always been a natural rivalry. The two teams are playing very well. They're pretty evenly matched. So when you come in, you don't know how it's going to play out for the rest of the season, but you want to leave your mark. And the way you leave your mark is to win games, and we want to win.
And to come back from 6-2 and get 6 runs in the 8th against their best pitcher.
Those kind of games, you know, help define your team and help take you to the next level. And you never know when that's going to, being on the other side of it, like we were last year, you never felt like your lead was safe against the Yankees. And you really didn't want to be behind going in the 7th inning because you knew the game was pretty much over. So to have a game like that and come back against the very best pitcher, you know, it helps with your confidence, and it plants a little doubt in their minds.
Yes, I bet it does.
It's a little chess game, I guess.
Tell me about the Orioles this season. I mean, why are you doing so much better? Pitching is stronger, relief pitching is stronger, but overall there seems to be something else.
To me, it's simple: pitching.
Pitching.
And pitching dominates the game. I mean, you have the pitcher out there on the mound. It's all in professional sports, in my opinion. Defense dictates, you know, your success, and pitching in our sport is defense. It's the first line of defense. And last year, we scored a lot of runs. We had 257 home runs. We scored the most runs. We had the best offense I've been a part of.
Most home runs in the majors last year.
That's right. And we broke a record, most home runs ever. Yeah. And we still weren't able to. We gained the wild card spot, and we had some success in the postseason. But you're not able to take it 30, 40 games over 500. You're not able to win 100 games in a season unless you have the frontline pitching. Pitching is the secret. I think we're leading the league in pitching, or at least in the earned run average. And that really translates to win.
Do you remember that great Oriole team that had 4 20-game winners on it? It was.
I was a little before my time, but I remember as a
Jim
fan.
Palmer and
Mike
3 other guys.
Pat Dobson, and
So that was before '82.
Yeah.
You got Jimmy Key coming in this year from the Yankees, who's 8-1 now. You inquired Ernie Davis over the season break. Eric Davis. He's made a contribution. What else?
Well, I mean, we have this essentially the same nucleus we had last year. I mean, the big difference in our team is we got Mike Border to come in. He played short. I moved over from short to third.
That's not a small event.
Well, I mean, it is in my opinion. But I mean, nowadays you can make much more out of it than actually is there. But we actually the philosophy was to improve the overall defense, and you can't argue with the combination that we put on the field now. I mean, arguably we have one of the best infields in baseball. We have to prove it to the rest of baseball, but I mean we have good people in key positions. Jimmy Key was a great addition for us. You know, the only question mark was his health, because we know how great of a pitcher he is. He knows how to control a game, and he's been a big addition for us. And I think it's just Ray Miller came in as a pitching coach,
right? And
that might be a staple to our staff.
Wasn't Ray Miller the pitching coach when your dad was manager?
Yeah, he started out with the Orioles, and actually not when my dad was managing. He went off.
They were coaching at the same time together.
They were coaching at the same time.
The move to third base. Someone once described third base, you know, as 59 minutes of boredom and 1 minute of sheer hell as the ball is coming ripping down from the batter to where you are. Is that apt?
I haven't heard that, but I mean, that's pretty accurate, yeah. At shortstop, you have so much information that you're digesting all over the place. I mean, you get the pitches, you have hit and run situations that are going through your mind. You're thinking about what the manager's strategies are. I mean, because you're kind of in a controlling position. At third, you know, all that stuff can still hit you, but you don't have any control to do anything about it. So, I mean, it is a little bit boring compared to short, in my opinion. But in that one moment, if you're not ready, if you're not prepared or whatever else, the ball comes down to you much faster. You have a lot less time to react, and you're either a hero, you make a great play, or you get an arrow and you're the GOAT.
You learn anything from watching Brooks Robinson?
Brooks Robinson, like most people that lived around the Baltimore area, and probably most people in baseball, period, he had an influence on a lot of people. And since I was from there and watching the Orioles play, his style, the way he handled himself, the way he got ready for the bat, the way he barehanded the ball on a bunt, those kind of things stick with you. And I think you can see the way I set up in my own style that, I mean, I took things from Brooks.
Yeah. When you are there and you're waiting at third base, and it's a hitter that hits to the left and hits ground balls, what's going through your head? I mean, what are you looking at? Are you looking for the ball to come off the bat, and do you instantly know where it's going to be?
You try to me, and I'm still struggling with this a little bit because it's an adjustment for me, but you get more comfortable. You try to get the quickest read you can off the bat. And I'm experimenting a little bit. You know, sometimes you watch the ball, the flight of the ball into the hitting zone. Sometimes you actually just focus on the hitting zone, and then the ball will come into the zone, so you're trying to react to the hitter. I find myself when I'm in close for a bunt, if a guy has a chance to bunt, but he also has a really quick bat and can pull it down really hard, you have to ready yourself. And I find myself really focusing in just to try to get a quick read off the bat, because every little small fraction of a second means something in your ability to catch that ball.
Golden Gloves awards have generally gone to people who are smaller than you are, fair to say. You're about 6'4"?
I'm 6'4", 225, and as a shortstop, that was a big person.
Yeah.
And
so how were you able to do it?
Well, when Earl Weaver decided to move me over many years ago, he wanted to have a stabilizing force in the middle of the infield. And I think he wanted to add a little bit more offense to our lineup. And I went over there knowing that I was bigger and that I couldn't take things from smaller people and apply their skills and the way they did things to my skills and do it. So it was just trying to figure out how you can play the position at your size and how you could do things and be successful at it. So, I mean, there wasn't really one set way to do it. I just kind of went through it.
And once Earl moved you there, the great legendary manager of the Orioles, you wanted to stay there. You said, look, if you're going to move me there, let's stay there.
Well, it was his intention to move me there and to keep me there. I mean, it worked out really well. I started getting much better at it. At first, I just, tried to hold my own. But then once I started learning the position, I started having success at it, I figured out how to play it pretty well. Double play, being
Yes,
6'4", 225, you know, the double play, you know, that your size protects you a little bit on the double play, whereas smaller people, you might be more of a target.
Is your arm stronger? Or does it matter in terms of reaction, in terms of getting it?
Yeah, I used, I used my arm strength a lot playing the position of shortstop. You need it when you go in the hole. But sometimes people will be able to use their legs and their quickness to run around the ball. Sometimes I would have to stab in it, kind of make up the difference on the throw to first base. But a good arm is a valuable weapon no matter where you play in the infield, but it's especially valuable at shortstop.
Tell me about hitting. I mean, when you go up to bat, what are you thinking about? How do you approach the pitcher, and what do you know about the pitcher?
To me, it's just, I mean, all the practice that you have is a repetition of practice that trains your hand-eye coordination in your body. That happens beforehand, but when you go into a matchup, you want to have a good game plan. You want to know what the pitcher has, what he's more likely to throw you, what his out pitch is. And I utilize my own memory to remember how he works me, and then develop a game plan and try to stick with it.
Because in the end, the battle between the pitcher and the hitter is guessing where the other's going to be? I mean, in part, it's a guess, isn't it?
Some of it's reaction, some of it's a guess. I mean, some hitters just go up there and look for the ball and try to react to what they see.
Do you do that, or do you?
At times.
Yeah.
But I'm more likely to go up there and try to look for a certain pitch, and I'd call it educated guessing. I wouldn't call it just plain guess hitting. If a guy has a really good fastball and he likes to use it, then the
likelihood is he'll give you a fastball.
You want to look for a fastball, and if his out pitch is a fork ball or a breaking ball, and he likes to get ahead with that, then it's just a matter of, to me, I can't hit both pitches. I can't hit a fastball and a curveball just looking for the ball. So if I'm going to hit a curveball, I have to really look for the break of the ball.
You have to look for the break of the ball.
Yeah.
When do you know where it's going to be? When it leaves his hand?
The earliest you can pick the ball up, obviously, it's the better, and your concentration is really critical, and being able to see the ball. Some pitchers hide the ball a little bit, but if you can pick up the rotation out of his hand, when you're hot, that's the time when you...
And it looks like a watermelon.
Oh, it does.
It looks like
a beach ball.
Grapefruit.
And you could be looking for a fastball, but then you see his wrist come up there somehow, and all of a sudden you see it go like this, and you go, that's a curveball, and everything seems to slow down, and you can hit it.
It actually feels that way. I mean, it looks bigger than it does. When you're in a slump, it looks like a golf ball.
It's a blur. Your head's moving. And, I mean, you only have that much time to really make up your mind, and yeah, it looks like a golf ball when you're not swinging well.
Ted Williams says it's the hardest thing to do in sport. Do you think it is, hitting a baseball?
It's the most frustrating thing, that's for sure. Your success rate is only 30% when you're doing it well.
If you hit 300, you're doing very well. That's Hall of Fame.
And that's exactly right. And you're considered a very good hitter, so you fail 70% of the time. And how you deal with that failure sometimes determines whether you can hit 30% or not.
And how are you doing in terms, since 1982 when you came up, how is your average done?
Well,
has it gone up and down? And
it's fluctuated a little bit. I mean, my lifetime career average probably is right around 280, 279, 280, or somewhere in that neighborhood. And that's probably coincidentally what I'm hitting right now. The law of averages kind of, if that's what you're capable of, it seems like one year you might hit 320, and one year you might hit 250. And I've done both. So, but overall, I've hit some home runs, I've driven in some runs.
Right. You've always had a lot of home runs for an infielder. Yeah. The bat and the equipment today, and the physical condition of athletes. Ken Griffey could hit 60 home runs this year.
Oh, yeah.
We thought Brady Anderson might do it.
Well, Brady hit 50. I mean,
We had a possibility.
Yeah. Mark McGwire probably is one of those physical specimens that you can picture him hitting 60 home runs. Griffey is on such a good role, and he's such a great hitter that when he gets into a home run swing, he can hit the ball out of all places. And he's on one of those paces now where he can hit over 60 home runs. It's very conceivable. To me, it's a matter of strength. It's a matter of being consistent. And there's a lot of guys in the league, maybe because of weights, maybe because of just their overall talent, that somebody else hit 60 home runs, somebody else hit 61 home runs. There are a lot of players that have that capability, but everything has to go right.
Yeah, you said an interesting thing, I think, in which you said that clearly the physical conditioning of athletes today, and baseball players especially, is much better. I mean, to look at Babe Ruth, for example, versus looking at somebody like Eddie Murray, your friend.
Yeah,
there's a great deal of difference. On the other hand, you said the craft.
That's true. I mean, that's an area in the book that that I had the most fun dealing with is talking about the state of the game.
Right.
And I didn't do it in a negative sort of way. I did it in a positive way. But I mean, there are concerns. I mean, a lot of people look at baseball in an old school kind of way, and they see it as it's changed when the business of baseball has gotten bigger, when the salaries have gone up, TV is watching it so much more. You often wonder how the entertainment of baseball impacts on the craft of baseball. And, you know, I discussed that, you know, pretty much at length in the book. And
how do you think it impacts?
I mean, I ask questions. To me, I think it has impacted. Again, not in a negative way, because when you're promoting the game of baseball, there's so many positive things about being on TV and more people watching it and more people thinking about it, dissecting the statistics. You know, I think that's all great. But it seems like, you know, some of the craft is being lost, maybe because the minor league system is not as important as it once was. Maybe the teachings aren't really that deep. It seems like we have more talent, you know, athletically than any other time. I mean, athletes are bigger, stronger, faster in all sports, and so you can see more things on an individual basis. But I mean, to actually know how to play the game, there seems to be something missing from that.
I'll bet you, I mean, and part of this comes out of here, you think in the end what makes a difference for you beyond anything is just the will to win, the will to play.
Yeah, the title, The Only Way I Know, is
Exactly.
means just that. I mean, I was taught, and I think when someone says I'm old school, I take that as an extreme compliment. My dad lived baseball, has a certain honor towards baseball, towards professional baseball, and he instilled in me the values and the approach to come out here and play. I mean, it's your job to come to the ballpark ready and willing to play the game. The manager's job is to make out a lineup, and if you happen to fit, you know, if he wants to put you in a lineup, then you should play. And that's simply, you know, how the streak started or whatever else. Most people say, well, no manager would take you out now. No manager would take you out in the middle. But it's kind of ironic that the reason that the streak happened was because I had managers that wanted to put me in the lineup every day. I didn't come to the ballpark and say,
put me in, put me in.
That's right. I didn't argue with it. They didn't even ask me to have a day off. I was doing well. I gave them what they wanted. You know, when they filled out a lineup, they wanted to put me in the lineup, and then all of a sudden you look up 4 or 5 years, maybe because of injuries, lack of injuries, or my ability to establish myself as an everyday player early, all of a sudden I had a streak, and then that's when, you know, that's when it started building momentum and started gaining attention, probably at, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 games.
Speaking of managers putting you in the game, it was your father who took you out when you had consecutive innings, not consecutive games.
That's true. When I said earlier the manager kept putting me in there, I mean, I played for a number of different managers, but my dad, when he became the manager, I had played for 5 straight years without him missing an inning. And the way that happened was, again, the manager wanted to put me in there, but I was at a point in my career, at the very beginning, I was establishing myself, I was learning. So when you were hitting well, I used to use this concept, when you're hitting well, you don't want to come out of the game and give up another at-bat, you want a chance to get another hit. And if you're struggling a little bit, I always use the blowout games to kind of experiment. You know, if you're winning by 10 runs or losing by 10 runs, now you're going to have to go to bat anyway.
Yeah.
So try to experiment. Really, that was a testing for the next day. So if I found something that clicked, I can apply it to the next day, and it would help me in my swing. So that started to gather momentum, media-wise momentum. You know, people were fascinated with that. I was doing a lot of extra interviews as a result of that. And my dad just felt that it was bothering me and it wasn't necessary. And he saw an opportunity and took me out of the game.
Now, he took you out of the game because he didn't want the pressure on you of having to deal with all the interruption in your game.
We were going through a very difficult time as an organization. You know, we were in a total rebuilding situation. So we were losing a lot of games. And that took its toll on all of us. And me individually, I was struggling, you know, trying to find my role, trying to play under those circumstances. And I was struggling a little bit, and I think that he saw that because I was down a little bit, mentally down a little bit. He saw that as a way to alleviate some of the burden of responsibility. There's one less thing that I had to talk about was a consecutive inning streak on top of everything else.
Speaking of your dad, when you think about who you are, your mom taught you to hit. But when you think about who you are and how much you learned at his feet because you'd go to the Orioles and all of that. How much of the total athlete and total player that Cal Ripken Jr. is credited to Cal Ripken Sr.?
A whole lot more than I knew. And the reason I say that, I understand his influence in me a whole lot more now because I have kids. And once you have kids and once you see how they learn and what they pick up, it makes you turn, I guess, the camera on yourself. I mean, you're looking at them, you're watching them learn, and you go, that's how they do that. And you say, that's how they're becoming the people that they are.
Yeah.
Then you look at yourself and go, well, how did I become the person that I am? And so through habits and through things that you watch, most of it is you pick up by what your dad does or what your mom does, or it's not so much what their words are, it's just how they conduct their lives and what they teach you and certain basic principles. And so I find that I'm a lot more like my dad than I thought. And once I look at it, I shake my head and say that, his influence is evident here, his influence is evident there, not only as a player, obviously as a player, but as a person. He's very strong. He's a very I don't want to say opinionated, but he stands for something. And to me, that rubs off. I mean, there's a certain honor and a certain caring. He's a man of principle, and I think I've picked up on that as a result of just the way he carries himself.
How hard was it for you when he was fired as manager of the Orioles?
Well, I didn't talk about that for a long time. I thought it was best to, if I didn't have anything very good to say, just to kind of keep my mouth closed, and it never really served a purpose anyway. But in the book, we got into that, and I was able to articulate some feelings and some opinions, and kind of shed some light into it. It was very difficult. All our lives, my dad trained us, and I say us because my brother Billy was a teammate, and my dad was the manager. So we had a family affair, but we downplayed that all the time because we were in professional baseball, and that kind of favoritism, whatever else, does not exist. I mean, there is no favoritism, and it was a unique situation. So he taught us to be professional. So I looked at him more as a coach or more as a manager than I did as a father, and I looked at my brother more as a teammate than I did as my brother. And so maybe by downplaying that, you could kind of say, well, the business of baseball is managers get fired. It happened to be my dad. He's a manager. Life goes on. Baseball goes on.
But
he's your father. I felt,
you could feel his pain.
Oh yeah, and I had enough pain in myself just because you don't want anything. The family feelings, everybody feels those feelings. When something happens to your inner family, that's not positive. You all feel for it.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about this, too, is that your dad, it wasn't an easy access to the top. I mean, he'd been around baseball, coached, then he was in the major league coach for a while, and then he got his shot for a year or two.
That's exactly right. He poured his whole life into it. And I think sometimes, looking back as a child, I missed him not having his everyday influence there with me. And, and I developed this love for baseball because he had this love for baseball. He poured every ounce of energy he had into baseball. And in the minor league system, it's hard. And he traveled a lot, but he did it for the love of the game. And right when he was about to be rewarded for all his work and his effort, he gets to the big leagues, and then he has an opportunity to manage. It wasn't the greatest opportunity in the world because we were right at the rebuilding point. We were right at totally scrapping it. We went from world champions in '83, and my dad was fired about, I guess it was at '88, early '88.
Yeah.
After 6 games into the season, I just thought that his opportunity, wasn't real good to begin with, and I thought it was just really
the second
unfair.
year of him being a major league manager.
Yeah, he had 1 year, but nobody seemed to want to admit that we were in a rebuilding situation. So then, therefore, the expectations were a little higher, and then once we started the next year 0-6, 6 games into the season, they made the change, and personally, it hurt, but I mean, it hurt a whole lot more because, I just felt for my dad that all the service that he had given, all the effort that he had put in, all the love and the pride that he has for the Orioles and the Oriole organization, all that was just, thrown down the tube, I guess.
Did it make you have a tougher attitude about the organization?
Yeah. I mean, the Oriole way.
This is business, guys, so I'll treat you like it's business. Don't come to me with this family crap.
You know,
The idea the Orioles are family, not...
Yeah, I just had, I mean, if I had to make a decision on my future as an Oriole, you know, within a week after that, the firing, I probably wouldn't have been an Oriole. I mean, but I was a free agent that year. At the end of the year, I would have been totally free to sign with anybody else.
Why didn't you?
Time heals most of your wounds, and I really had a chance to really look and see, you know, what was best for me, what was best for my family, the stability of being there. I mean, I still have a love and a pride for the Orioles that I had from the very beginning. And I thought that I was young enough in my career that I could withstand a rebuilding process, and I could make a difference, you know, ultimately to restore the Orioles to a team of respect.
Yeah, there's also this notion, I suspect, with you, that if your fathers travel around all over the place, and you can stay at one place and plant your roots, there's something very attractive and compelling about it.
Well, baseball itself doesn't lend itself to stability.
It's a nomadic lifestyle.
And you're moving around. And I put up with that as a kid, and not put up with it. I had to exist that way with a kid, and stability has always been very important to me. Your kids are going to go to school. If I had some power to control some of that, I do. And I want to be home with my family. I want to be there with my kids, and I want to make sure that they have a stable environment in which to grow up. And that was a big part of my decision.
Would you like to manage?
I don't think so. The thought is appealing, but I think my thoughts really are right now. I've had a long career in baseball. If I were to manage, you'd be subject to the same nomadic lifestyle that you are now. And I think that I want to give something back to baseball, and I want to have a difference to baseball when my playing career is over. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet.
Well, is it broadcasting or management? Is that the choice?
Broadcasting and managing or coaching, whatever else, you still travel the same schedule. I mean, I have a bigger picture. I mean, I'd rather be in some form of ownership, or be in some form of front office or whatever else, where you can dictate your schedule a little bit more. You don't have to travel on the road.
Did you, when your contract was being, the last day, you just, in April, I guess, you extended it for 2 years, right? At about $6 or $7 million a year or something like that. Am I low or high on that?
I don't know the exact terms. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But
here's my
I wouldn't tell you if I knew.
I didn't think you would. But here's my question. What did you say anything to the Orioles like, look, you know, rather than give me all this money, how about a little stock?
Well,
or how about a lot of stock?
We've explored you know, those kind of ideas for years, and it hasn't been too well received, I guess. That really wasn't an option in the negotiations. I mean, you really want to focus on your.
But you've raised it before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because
if there was an opportunity there, then I would definitely, you know, trade salary for an opportunity in the in some sort of ownership and some sort of position where you can.
See, I would think it would be in their interest because you're such a legend now because of the streak. You're such a legend.
I don't see myself that way. I mean, I see myself as someone that can give a lot to the game of baseball, and I've spent my life learning baseball. I think that I'm a student of the game as a result of my dad giving his life to baseball, and I think that there are a lot of positive things I can bring to an organization of substance and also of public relations, if you really want to look at it that way. But I don't see myself in a legendary status. I don't see myself as something that's going to be a point person for a team or whatever else. I see myself as a lifelong baseball guy, and I can give something to a team for that.
When did you begin pursuing in your own head Lou Gehrig's record of most consecutive games played?
I remember at game number 2000, I thought it was conceivable. I don't think that in my whole career, I wouldn't say that I ever pursued it. This is something that just happened. It happened because of a desire to play. It happened because I was told this is how I was supposed to approach the game. It happened because the managers wanted to put me in there. And some people say I got locked into it. I became a prisoner of the streak.
But at some point you got into it. I mean, did it only happen the last season, or was it a couple of seasons when you realized?
Game number 2000 was the point where I felt it was conceivable to get to the record.
Yeah.
And it was, I felt a little pressure to get there. All the way up until that point or whatever else, I kept pushing it. You know, I was criticized for saying you're only playing to extend the streak. It's a selfish attitude, especially when you're hurting the team. And I never bought into any of that criticism. And I always was able to push that aside and look at it just from a simple standpoint or whatever else. It's a game today. I come out, I want to play. The manager wants to put me in there, I'll play.
And what if the manager had said, you know, this is a big game and you're not playing? It wouldn't have been that, wouldn't it? It would have been much more, can we talk about it? This is...
You know, it's in my nature to, I'd probably debate him a little bit, and I would try to make a case for myself. But, I mean, in the end, if I'm not worthy of being in the lineup, I don't want to be in the lineup.
Then go back for a second. I'll come back to the streak for a second. When there was a debate, was there at all a debate about leaving shortstop to go to third base?
No.
Nothing. You accepted it?
Yeah, it was surprising when it was brought up in the middle of the season.
Yeah, you didn't like the fact that he brought it up when it was private conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
why am I pulling this out of you?
No. I'm thinking in my head, you know, here I am reliving, you know, something that was controversial.
Yeah.
And it's very simple, whatever else. I would do what's in the best interest of the club. The manager is hired to act in the best interest of the club. And the only thing I thought that, you know, we talked about it. I asked if it was if there was a sense of urgency. You know, is this something you want to do right away? And the response was no. And they said, well, why don't we, you know, think about what each other said. You know, we had a nice conversation, a good conversation. Let's talk again tomorrow, and we'll go from there. And then it came out, you know, immediately thereafter in the press, and I was put in a position, you know. I was painted in the corner a little bit. I wasn't prepared for the media onslaught after that, and so I think that was it was perceived that I was angry about the move, whatever else. In which, you know, I just thought I was put in a position I didn't need to be put in. That's all.
Pride, all of that. It's an element of it, isn't it?
I guess I'm someone that likes to be prepared and in control, and
no kidding.
I don't think that's a bad trait.
No, I don't either. If you can play third base, you better be.
I think that's a good trait. But I mean, so when it happened or whatever else, it just caught me off guard, and it felt like that you know, that my trust had been violated just a little bit, and you know, maybe it gets back to the influence my dad had on me. I think that's very important.
It comes back to Dad a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me show a clip of that night, that great evening on September 6, 1995. The president's there, the vice president's there, and I guess who else was there? Who wasn't there? Exactly, 60,000 or whatever.
I think I ran into everyone
who says I
was there, and the number might be 500,000.
There's not a week that goes by probably that somebody doesn't say something to you. Maybe a day. Does every day of your life somebody say something about the streak?
The streak is who I am going to be remembered for.
Cal Ripken Jr., Baltimore Oriole baseball player, who eclipsed Lou Gehrig's record for the most consecutive games until John Smith eclipsed his record in 1999 or whatever, or
so,
2004.
I mean, I used to want to be recognized for being, you know, a pretty good ball player, and it kind of bothered me at first that I was tagged with this label.
Endurance.
But then, you know, I'm comfortable with who I am as a baseball player. I'm happy that I'm remembered at all. So the streak is not bad. I was fighting the streak early on because I felt like I had to defend why I wanted to play.
All right. Roll tape. Here it is. September 6, 1995. Lou Gehrig's record broken by Cal Ripken Jr. And as you're making that round, what's going through your head? What are you thinking? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What is it?
The thing that I remember most that I was embarrassed for interrupting the game. I mean, because
come on, were you really?
Well, I mean, the California Angels were in a pennant race. We were not.
Yeah.
And you know, to make the pitcher stand out there and you know, he's pitching the game, and you know, however long the delay is going to be, you know, the pitcher's going to, it's like a rain delay, that you're going to cool down and you have to bring it back up. And I just felt that, you know, yeah, great, let's celebrate this, but let's just wait till the end of the game's over. So when Bobby Bonilla and Rafael Palmeiro pushed me out there to take a lap around the field, they said we wouldn't start this game unless you ran around the field. And I didn't want to do that either. And they pushed me out there, and then once I started going through the handshaking, I was looking at people, I recognized some people, and it became a much more of an intimate celebration. And you could tell the first part of it I was really fast. The last part about it I slowed down, and then by the time I got to the California Angels dugout, I could care less whether the game was going to be played. The last 4 innings would be played or not. I mean, it was one of those special moments that you know, that feeling just totally went away, and I said, well, let's celebrate this forever.
Yeah, and you will. What time did you go to bed that night, that morning? I
was so keyed up, and I guess the whole week was a nice celebration. It was a building of the week, and the 2 nights, September 5th and September 6th, was very draining, physically and mentally. I guess I went to sleep actually lay down on the pillow probably about 4 in the morning. Didn't leave the stadium until somewhere around 3. And your eyes are wide awake, you can't sleep. And so it was probably about 3 or 4 days after that I just felt like I'd been run over by a truck.
Because your body said, we've had enough of this.
That's it.
Yeah. What haven't you done? If this is what you have done in baseball, what haven't you done?
You know, I've been fortunate to have many great experiences. I've been part of a World Series winner. I've been to many All-Star games. I've been on that team that started 0-21.
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, all your experience, I guess.
Frank Robinson.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All the, and that was the firing of my dad as well. He started the first 6
Frank
games.
replaced your dad.
Frank replaced him.
And you went, what, 21 games was it in the end?
21 total. So we had all that attention for all the wrong reasons. And, you know, we lost 100 games. So, I mean, I've had the unique ability to understand both sides, the ecstasy of winning and the agony of losing. And I think that helps mold you as a player and as a person. I mean, all your experience in life, they can't all be positive, but the negative ones I think you learn from, too.
You've been most valuable player for 2 years, as we said, including the '83 year, which was your second year. You were the only guy I know who went from Rookie of the Year to most valuable player the next year. Is anybody else you know that did that?
I think Fred Lynn was the Rookie of the Year and the MVP in the same year.
Okay.
So in '82, I broke onto the scene and I won the American League Rookie of the
You know
Year.
what's interesting about your life, and it's all here, the only way I know Cal Ripken Jr., it is that, and I don't know whether this is true for people who go on to be superstars as you have, it is that it was not so guaranteed, and it was not one success after another. Your career in baseball was not Tiger Woods' career in golf. You know, I mean, you didn't have a string of victories. When you played first, I guess, in West Virginia, you didn't do terrific your first year in the minors.
No, it's...
batting 162 or something. What?
Don't remind me.
162.
Well, you know, when I went away...
That's not 3 out of 10. That's
no.
1 out of 10.
I didn't hit a home run the whole season in Bluefield either.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was 17 years old. I had physically matured a little bit later. I was still gaining weight. I signed at 6'2", 180.
Yeah.
And now I'm 6'4", 225. So, I mean, I was still growing and coming into who
40
I was.
pounds you put on.
Yeah. And at the time, you go from being it's an adjustment. You're in professional baseball. You're going from high school that you're normally used to competing against to all of a sudden you're the star on your high school team or one of the stars. Yeah. You go to rookie ball. Now everybody that's there was a star of their own team. So, I mean, and certain people, I remember feeling so depressed when Bob Bonner was the shortstop, came out of Texas A&M. He was 4 years in college. Right. Very good player and very polished at the time. And I was sitting, taking ground balls behind him and watching the things that he was doing. I'm going, I'll never play. Is this what it's going to be like? 2 days later, he was sent to AA, and it allowed me to start to develop. And then, you know, eventually Bob Bonner and I were teammates in AAA, and then I went on to the big leagues.
Well, then you went down to Charlotte, right? Next.
I stopped. I was only in the minor leagues. I signed in June of '78, and I got to the big leagues August of '81. So if you technically look at it, it's three years.
Yeah.
But I made a stop in Bluefield, West Virginia, which was rookie ball, Miami, Florida, which was A ball,
right.
and the next Charlotte, North Carolina, which was Double A,
right.
and
AAA
Rochester, New York.
Roll tape. This is you as a rookie. Here it is.
And the #1 son is the Rochester Red Wings' Cal Ripken Jr., recipient of this week's Gillette Special. Son of Baltimore's third base coach and former Red Wing manager, the Ripper leads the league in doubles with 29 and is hitting near 300 with 20 homers and 66 RBI.
I'm learning as a hitter. I'm learning the pitchers. I'm learning how to hit the ball to right field, how to hit the ball left field, and learn how to look for a certain pitch in a certain situation. So all of that, you know, is helping me become a better ball player, and maybe someday soon I'll be in a big league uniform.
The managers sure agree, recently selecting the 20-year-old third baseman as the International League's best prospect. Congratulations, Cal. And that's all for now, folks. See you next week on This Week in Baseball.
So there you were at, what, 8:20?
I enjoyed that, yeah. You
It was Mel Allen's voice, wasn't
yeah. Well, the reason that I got some attention at AAA, I guess, was 81 was labor year, strike year.
Right.
And it was a long strike, and the Major League Baseball was off, so they started to cover some of the AAA games. And
there you were.
There I was.
Yeah. Literacy, important to you. You've given away about $500,000. What's the connection?
Well, let me see where I can start on that. Being in Baltimore, it seemed like to me, growing up in Baltimore, it seemed like a lot of players came into the Orioles and the community kind of pulled them in, and then they kind of reached out to the community, and they made a difference in their community. I thought that was really a great relationship that players had with the community, and they didn't even live there. Right. And the fact that I lived there, I thought, you know, if I ever get to the position of the big league player, I know I'm going to have some influence, and I know that I'm going to have, maybe I'll get to a financial situation where I can make a difference. I can do the same thing. I have more reason to give because I'm from there. And once I got into the position, I didn't know where I wanted that influence to go. I did a lot of things. I tried to use my influence in every way. When people would come to me, I would just do it. Then all of a sudden, my wife Kelly and I, we started to investigate a little bit and look at where some of the problems were in the city or in the community. And I was really taken back to find out that in this society in which we live in today, I made the assumption that everyone is educated. Everyone learns how to read, and you know, it doesn't exist. You know, you go to school and you learn how to read, and then to come to find out that wasn't true. And then and education is always, you know, is so important in my belief that once you learn to read, you can become educated anywhere you want. I mean, you can learn about anything you want. You go to the library and learn. If you can't read, you know, it's a stumbling block. It's a stopping point. So once I found out that there was a problem, you know, I became interested in that, and then I used, you know, I got involved in a program which was being started up by the mayor at the time, and you know, the relationship has grown, and you know, now I can see it more from the inside out. And when you're in something or whatever else, you see the good that you're doing, and you see the impact you have on someone's overall life. And with the book, you know, I started thinking, you know, I'm going to go on a tour to market the book. I'm going to do book signings or whatever else. Now I'm going to be out there. This is a fabulous opportunity to increase the awareness of literacy and just to push reading. I mean, reading is good or whatever else, and it gave me a chance to be a point person or a spokesperson for it. And what I did, I mean, I have a relationship with Baltimore Reads, and God, I don't know how many years, but I started out this year, I gave $250,000 to that program, and I pledged $25,000 for each of the 10 communities that I'm going to go into for the book signing. So that's another $250,000. So it's a total of $500,000.
Good for you. Let me talk about players, and don't hold back, all right? Just throw out names. You've done this before. Eddie Murray.
Eddie is the greatest teammate I ever had, and the most misunderstood player around, I think.
Because he seems moody, because he seems like he's playing in himself?
Well, I think that, you know, Eddie puts up a front, you know, a means to protect himself. But, I mean, Eddie's one of the kindest, has the biggest heart, the person that'll just, you know, fight with you till the end. And no one knows that. I mean, and granted, you know, he could have done some things, I guess, to help himself media-wise. But he doesn't care about that. He cares about you, me. He cares about the team so much or whatever else, and he doesn't care how he's perceived sometimes. I mean, he won't violate friends' trust, but he won't. I don't think he'll think twice about not talking sometimes.
Let me talk about this for a second. Jackie Robinson 50th anniversary, breaking the color line, and how important that was for 100 reasons that are fundamental to who we are as a people. Then you had the controversy later about the fact that there's not that many African-American managers in baseball. At the player level, you mentioned the relationship you have with Eddie Murray. We all know about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, two very close friends who played competitively against each other. Is there almost no racism within players, within the locker room? Have we come that far because...
I mean, I guess it's what your influences are and how you think. In my way of thinking, there is none. I mean, but I know I'm probably naive to the existence
to assume
of it.
that it's not there.
Yeah. But to me, baseball players are baseball players. You're judged for your abilities and your knowledge and everything else, and it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you look at someone, you don't see black, white, or anything else. You just see players. So from my background and from the way that I think, I'm not aware of it. I don't see it. I don't look for it. But I'm smart enough to know that there are probably situations that, it's out there. It exists, but, I would hope everyone, after a while, would have the same view as I would.
Let me talk about other people. Earl Weaver.
I didn't get to play for Earl as long, maybe as I would like to. He was a fiery manager and
a great interview.
Yeah, people really really remember the charades that he had with the umpires, but he was very intense, very good strategist. He always seemed to have his matchups late in the game. He picked his teams with certain roles. He used the whole 25-man roster, and he used his roles, and he used those people on the bench as weapons, and he was like I guess a major chess player. He sat back and played out his moves. And again, he retired, early in my career, so I didn't get a chance to see him. He was intimidating a little bit to play for. I mean, he was someone, in my opinion, that spoke. Whatever went into his head came out his mouth. And so if he was thinking about you in a bad way and you were sitting next to him, it would just come out. I mean, I was 7 for my first 68 in the big leagues. That was my start. And I'm glad that I played for him because he had enough confidence in his evaluation, and he had enough confidence in me as a player to stick with me. If I had been playing for a new manager that didn't have that same kind of confidence or was getting pressures from someone else, they might have made a change early on, and I might not have been able to establish myself. But a lot of times I'd swing at a bad pitch, and I'd sit right next to him, and he would go, take the good ones, swing at the bad ones, and then he would say a few other things that I don't want to tell you on TV. But and if you couldn't take that, he would affect how you played.
Toughest pitcher you ever faced?
God.
For you?
That's Len Barker probably was the toughest. I mean, I knew that if he was pitching, he was a pitcher with Cleveland, threw a perfect game. He had just unbelievable stuff, in my opinion. And he had this slider that I couldn't see. And I knew that every time...
It's tough if you can't see it, isn't it?
Every time I played against him, I figured I'd have to suck it up, and I'd probably strike out 3 times, maybe 4 times guaranteed in the game. And we'd have to stay close and see. Hopefully somebody else could hit him. But Goose Gossage and a lot of
Goose Gossage, because how fast he threw it?
He threw the ball so hard, and it looked like he never was looking where he was throwing it. And I got a chance to face him, early in the 80s when he was still throwing almost 100 miles an hour. And he would throw his front shoulder out there, and I think that everyone has that vision of him hitting Ron Say in the head in the World Series. Right. And so when you went up there, you never quite, you're never sure about, where the ball was going to go. So he was tough for that reason. Plus, he threw 100 miles an hour. But Randy Johnson throws 100 miles an hour too, and he has got some unbelievable nasty
Have you
stuff.
ever had any fear standing up there?
I think fear is healthy. I mean, in order to protect yourself, you have to have a little bit. But in order to hit, you can't be thinking that the ball's going to hit you.
What's the fear?
I guess the fear is just
beyond embarrassment.
I think if anybody said that they don't have fear, they would be lying to you.
But it's the fear of that the guy's going to hit me with the pitcher's going to 100 miles an hour, is going to hit me with the ball, or something else.
Well, you can be. I mean, your career can end.
Sure. Ask Herb
by
Score.
one pitch, and you know, your career can be affected. I mean, broken bone, and a lot of people have been hit. I've been hit in the head, you know, 6, 7 times. Matter of fact, in my rookie year, I got hit by Mike Moore in the head looking for a breaking ball, and the fastball got away from him, and I was waiting for it to break,
And it did break.
and it hit me. And a lot of people say that was a defining moment in my career that woke me up a little bit, and I started hitting from that point on. There might be
something loose.
There might be some truth. Well, if the word is out in the league that you can be intimidated by that.
Yeah.
Then a lot of people are going to do it.
Now, is the word out in the league about certain hitters that they can be intimidated, so you brush them back?
Some people don't like to be moved off the plate, and if you can come back and hit and show that, you know, it's a bad strategy, then the likelihood of someone throwing in there is a little bit less than it would otherwise. But if you become agitated by it and you swing recklessly and you make outs, that can become part of the strategy.
When you were a shortstop, who scared you the most on first base as a runner?
A lot of people came in really hard. I never was scared.
With spikes up.
Spikes rolling. I mean, the beauty about being a shortstop is that you're looking straight at the runner. So I mean, you're not a sitting target. You're a second baseman, and the throw's coming over here. You're blind to being hit. It's like a quarterback sitting in the pocket and not seeing someone on his blind side come in and hit him in the back. At second base, you don't have a feel for where he is. At shortstop, you have the use of your vision. So if the ball's coming from the second baseman or the first baseman or the pitcher for a double play, you can position yourself. I always thought that I was agile enough and big enough where contact really wouldn't make much difference at second base. But somebody like Kirk Gibson automatically comes to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, Kirk Gibson played the game very hard. Yeah. It almost seemed like he got on first base for the sole purpose of breaking up two. and he would come in there, I'd laugh at him all the time.
Breaking up a double play, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
right.
Breaking up a double play. Right. And he liked that reputation, and we laughed about it, we joked about it a lot. You know, sometimes I'd say he had football flashbacks when he came in. But he did it always, you know, clean and hard. And, you know, if someone puts their spike up and spikes you, or someone does something different that's a little bit outside the rules, then that's considered a little bit dirty. But Kirk was never that way.
How good is Ken Griffey Jr.?
Well, they say he's the best. He's the best baseball player, you know, around.
Does Cal Ripken Jr. say that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm envious of his skills. I think when you look at him, he's so natural. I mean, there's not a thing on the field I don't think he can do. I mean, if he put his mind to it, he could steal bases. He runs very well. He plays great defense. He throws very well. And his hand-eye coordination and the power that he possesses in that box is extraordinary. And he seems to do it so effortlessly that it makes us all envious. I mean, there's a lot of very talented players in the league, but he's one that seems just to be a natural.
Pete Rose used to bristle when you would say to him, look, you don't have as much talent as the other guys do. You know, you do it by hustle, you do it by concentration, you do it by energy, you do it by practice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they say something akin to that with you. That is not the natural grace of an athlete you have. It is willpower. It is learned skill.
Well, first of all, in order to play at this level, you have to have the talent.
You better be, yes.
Because if you don't have the talent, then you're not going to be able to be successful. But there's all different degrees of talent. Obviously, the
Ken
talent,
Griffey Jr. is one
right.
thing.
The talent you talk about with Ken Griffey is way up there. And
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I mean but it doesn't mean they don't work hard at their skill either. I mean but some of the rest of us that are down a little bit, we know we have certain skills. We know you try to hone those to the best of your ability, and sometimes it requires more practice and more work to get the most out of your skill. And you know, I always I've never been against working for anything. That's one thing my dad really taught me. Not because he sat down and say, you know, I think you should have a good work ethic. It's the way he lived his life and the way that he worked that made me, you know, look at him. And he spent, you know, he couldn't wait to get to the ballpark at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and put his uniform on. He was always the last one to leave, and he'd throw batting practice for 45 straight minutes. You know, in the minor leagues, you don't have specialty coaches. You run the whole show. So if you're a pitcher's on the side, you catch them. If you need batting practice, you throw it. If you hit ground balls, you hit it. And so all these things he gave me or whatever else helped me, you know, make the most out of my skills. So I have to work at it.
But it's building on skills. I mean, as you say, by the time you get to the majors, you find out what's the difference between.
The saddest thing to me is that you see a great athlete in the minor leagues, and he doesn't work for it, and then he doesn't quite make it.
Yeah.
But the sadder than that is when you have someone that is this short of talent, but works very hard, and he maxes out at AAA, just below, and he doesn't have enough talent to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
But he'd do anything. He'd give one of his hands or one of his arms to be able to go.
That must be the saddest thing in the world.
That is.
Yeah. The only way I know, Cal Ripken Jr. and Mike Bryan, thank you very much. A pleasure to have you in the
Welcome.
broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.